what is going on, everybody? Welcome to, obviously my post-game reactions. Like I said, kind of holding a little bit later than would like to normally have it. Obviously, we are coming to you live tonight here on Thursday, September 14th at almost quarter of midnight. So, like I said, I'm probably going to spend, I would say 15, 20 minutes, that sort of thing. Kind of give my own thoughts and reactions to how this game really had played out between the Eagles and Vikings live on prime time. Um, but that being said, if you guys new, make sure you hit that like button. Also hit that subscribe button. That being said, there's a lot of things that, well, like I said, even in the title itself, obviously the Eagles did win 30-24, obviously barely scraping past the Minnesota Vikings. Actually 34-28, whatever. I'll fix it later. But I do believe that the fact that we make Kirk Cousins look like I don't know. Even though the fact Kirk Cousins never usually plays that well on um on prime time, and quite honestly, I thought the defense really came to play. I thought Sean Desai had some good adjustments, but the problem that I had, I will nitpick with this a lot, was the offense and the offensive coordinator. Is the fact that Brian Johnson decided not to really run the football, and what's also funny to me as well as Brian Johnson doesn't even know what the heck he's doing, and at times it makes and sometimes it makes you wonder, is this dude? I don't think this dude was really, I don't think this dude is pretty much right for the job, so to speak. But hey, Eagles got the win nonetheless. But it's another ugly, gritty win, which should not happen against a team like the Minnesota Vikings, who, in terms of talent wise, doesn't really have the greatest. Let's be real, the secondary and that entire defense kind of stinks for the Vikings, and the fact that we only put up 34 on them, even though we should at least put up 40 plus on it. I think any team should be put up 40 plus on a team like the Minnesota Vikings, because let's be real, we all know that they're not going to do what they did last year, and it's quite honestly, what's going on, guys? Shout out to Daniel Berry. Shout out to RC. What's going on, Brandon? Quite honestly, look, regardless of the way I look at it, a win's a win for the Birds. But still, obviously, Josh Obi hasn't really, let's real, can suck a bag of walnuts. And same with Mario Gerwich. Like I said, it pains me as a Clemson fan. The dude was never that really good in college. And it's the one thing that's really annoys me a little, or I'm not saying annoyed, but obviously something we have to, in a way, kind of address the backup roles, because Josh Jobe and Mario Gerwich for me are not the guys for me in terms of the third and fourth stringers. Obviously with and obviously with Bradbury coming back from that concussion, and the fact that where the hell was Eli Ricks? For me, that really didn't really make any sense. But where the fuck was Eli Ricks? See, that's the thing too, RC. This is 2 weeks in a row we had to pull out a win from our rear ends, because the offense for some reason can't get it going. Desai at times, depending on what he plans out, sometimes they will have to be on the field for more than what they have to be. And quite honestly, it's ridiculous. We should not be having this type of conversation 2 weeks in. Now, I will say about Desai, I think he has done so far specifically a decent job as currently right now as the defensive coordinator. I thought he brought some pretty much a lot of pressures to Kirk Cousins. And yes, there was a lot of there were some calls that should have been called. There were some missed ones. In particular, with AJ Brown, obviously getting held, and I guess you get that phantom hold on Rashad Penny, even though that's what I've been seeing, even though that's real, that is a hold, no matter how ugly, subtle it may be. If it's a subtle hold, they're still going to call it nonetheless. But hey, don't come at me for that. But regardless, like I said, the Eagles, come out, thought, yeah, look, having that 50, And yeah, it was a good game by us and the Pats. I will say I wish I'd done or post game reaction, but then again, the following day I was working the following as well. But like I said, moving on from the Pats. But with the Vikings, I do like Justin Jefferson. I like KJ Osborne as the number 3, obviously with Addison look like being the 2. And Addison looked like he actually played pretty well against us. But the problem that I had was more on the offensive side of things. Obviously with Landon Dickerson, for some reason cannot somehow play the simplest position, and obviously forced, with Hurts getting, I think, sacked more than a couple of times, which should not happen on this offensive line. And quite honestly, it's ridiculous to say the least. Like I said, I'm not really going to really yell too much because it is almost midnight. Like I said, I'm not going to be on here too much longer. Probably, obviously, 10, 15, about at least 20 minutes at least. But I mean, with all the way how this game has really turned out, look, still win nonetheless. I'm not really going to sugarcoat it, but it isn't another win that should not have been as close as it was. I mean, look, we won by 5 against the Pats. Should not have happened. Now, yes, we're playing against and Bill Belichick is a defensive minded genius. I'll give them that. But you're playing against a team like Kevin O'Connell and his coaching, and yeah, Brian Flores, right now working what he's got in terms of, well, let's be real, not really the best quality of defensive players. I would say. I mean, with Sweat forcing a fumble, you had Alexander Madison coughing off the football as well. So there was a lot of turnovers in this game. And to be fair, it's really not really. It's kind of hard to really describe it or explain it. But regardless, though, I mean, look, Sirianni, I think going forward, I think Sirianni should be really taking the play callings because I can't trust Brian Johnson worth a damn to call any offensive plays. And the fact that you had Sirianni had to step in and actually start, running the football, might I add, because, Brian Johnson wants to be mostly pass heavy, which should not have happened. Should not happen anyways. But hey, you know, and it's getting to the point where it's going to take off a lot of Eagles fans, myself included, because Brian Johnson, for some reason, he's not doing a really good job. And it's obviously showing that Desai is actually, out coaching him. In terms of look at these coaches on our coaching staff, I would say the one right now who actually shown to actually has some value was Sean Desai. Now, yeah, Sean Desai, there are times where there were some things that just never went to plan, but and that was the one thing. You've seen the most of this game. He's adapted, or obviously not adapt. Well, adapted is one of them, but also adjusted at the same time. It's like, okay, look. I mean, look. If his own, there are times where he has really protected for let's be real when terms with the screen passes. Now, yes, there was in week 1 we could not really defend that worth a damn. But what also, and I would say about that is the fact it was well defended, and obviously, unfortunately, we had to sacrifice with the deep ball. And quite honestly, that's not something that I'm happy about. Like I said, that's the one thing that needs to be cleaned up. Because, like I said, we're going to keep playing like this going past week 5 before we get to I think our bye week's week 7 is our bye week. I think that's something that I think there's a conversation needs to be had. But if let's just say this: if Desai plays and it keeps adjusting his defense and plays and has these guys playing much better tighten up defense. And what's going on, Eric? And to be quite honest, the fact that, like I said, I mean, look, like I said, and I think I said this too on the All Star Sports Show, which we'll have another episode coming up later Friday at 6 p.m. So it's gonna be because we're gonna be definitely be touching upon this more. But besides the fact that Desai, I thought he actually coached pretty well on the defensive side of things. I think Jalen Carter was still being a menace. You had guys like Josh Sweat forcing the fumble, and you guys got, you had your defense come out of play, and then you had your offense, with, obviously with Smitty getting his first touchdown of the year. And it's like, it really doesn't make any. And quite honestly, look, I'm happy with the win, but what I'm not happy about is how Brian Johnson decides, want to be very all pass heavy, and well, let's be real, that almost really, I thought almost cost us this game the way that, yes, with obviously one of those plays turned out to be a pick from Jalen Hurts. Even though, like I said, people want to blame Jalen Hurts and all the crap that he, all the, and that's what sends to the fact that number one, just for whatever, just what Brian Johnson's ever doing right now is not really working. Number two, you had this also goes back to in the preseason, like you didn't have your starters at all. I don't never really will understand why not just the Eagles, but also the other teams should play their stars to at least get the reps that they need. So when you come and get ready for game time, we wouldn't have these problems. But unfortunately, in terms with how the Eagles are running things, it doesn't want to work out that way. And I'm tired with these damn. Look, we're 2-0. I can't complain about it. But where I am going to complain is these damn slow starts, where it's going to get to the point where it's going to come back to bite us in the rear end. Guys like, even that, and that's also playing guys like Goodrich, who freaking stinks. Obviously, Josh Jobe, for whatever reason, cannot cover worth a damn. I thought Zach Cunningham actually played solid. Terrell M has actually been very impressed with him. Actually made some solid tackles. Nicholas Morrow, yeah, been very contributive on the defensive end of the football. Quite honestly, and what also really bugs me about that, well, not the defense anyways. I thought the defense really did what they need to do. But what you also got to do is blame the offense for not being on the field for too long. Now, yes, we did dominate the time of possession, but we could at least had at least 40 plus minutes worth of time of possession. We had multiple opportunities to put this game away or put this game on ice, so to speak. I mean, right now you could, after, you could have put this, could have at least dropped at least a 40 plus burger right now on the top of the head of Minnesota. But unfortunately, you had a missed opportunity. Now, Swift, yes, did a lot of the heavy lifting because obviously you have Gainwell dealing with a rib injury, which, I really can't complain too much of what I think was 18 carries for $175. I mean, look, still solid night from DeAndre Swift for a guy in week one was MIA to say the least. But hey, good to see DeAndre Swift shine. Rashad Penny, I like what I've seen out of him a little bit. But the problem was that we could have had another at least for a couple touchdowns. Obviously, both to AJ Brown, catches in the, got a touchdown and whatnot. But Penny's, can't think of the word right now. Became like a blockhead. Decided to hold one of the defensive linemen and caught. And that set 7 points taken off the board or held off the board. And then, you also have AJ Brown getting held in the secondary. And, and that was another set. So we pretty much, in those two opportunities right then and there, we could have at least put 14 points on those two attempts. At least for me. But hey, no, look. Either way, we still did what we needed to do. Yes, and we barely got by. We barely scraped by the Vikings. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Look, if you're going to be one of those people who are going to probably see this replay and be calling me pessimistic, look, I could care less if I'm pessimistic, but there's a lot of things that are some things that need to straighten up immediately. Number one is the better play. Brian Johnson's playing call needs to stop. I'm sorry. Or at least you need balance. Like it's kind of weird to the fact that people say, "Oh, we miss Shane," and in a way, one can make the Shane also did better, when he was here. I'm exactly like I said. Why did I think I put the word barely in the title? I ain't gonna sugarcoat crap. Like, call me pessimistic all you want. If you're gonna call me pessimistic, like I said, I could care less. But look, we still got the win. Would a nice been a blowout? Oh, absolutely, 100%, absolutely, and completely embarrass them back on primetime. Because right now we pretty much own the Vikings in primetime on primetime games, whether Vikings fans like it or not. And to the Vikings, look, to their credit, their front seven actually played some solid ball. But the problem, like I said, the glaring issue where it still lies is in the secondary. Quite honestly, the secondary still stinks. Like we all know that. Yes, I mean you had a better upgrade in terms of defensive coordinator with Brian Flores, but with the Vikings though, the Vikings they still need to address that secondary. I'm sorry, but when we have guys like Devontae Smith torching one of your corners for almost 69 yards and 69 yards for a touchdown, you can't tell me that's concerning. That should have been addressed the last couple of years, but somehow you don't want to do it. Last year, I mean, the Vikings were a fluky ass team. Look, 13 of what was it, 13 of 14-3, 13-4, whatever the case may be. It's like it really shows that the Vikings, you know, they ain't the greatest, they ain't good, or people are making them out to be. I mean, look, yeah, last year, look at last year, 11-0 and one score games. That should tell you that the secondary, the defense ain't playing well. And yes, who's to say that, next game the Vikings play, they're probably going to completely crap the bed. I see, that's where the problem, and that's the glaring issue. Most NFL fans can see where the problem lies is that defense and secondary for the Vikings. Look, like I said, the offense is there. Don't get me wrong. Look, Kirk Cousins. Look, whether you like or hate the dude, I gotta give him his props. He played some solid ball in primetime because we all know Kirk Cousins completely sucks in primetime games. It's well documented at that point. But that's where the things that, and also thank you for the fantasy points, by the way, Kirk Cousins. But that's irrelevant to this moment. But hey, I've really liked what I'm with the Vikings from what I've seen from most of this game. What I've been very impressed with. Look, Justin Jefferson's still an electric wide receiver one. Jordan Addison, I think he's really pretty much came as advertised as what he was in college. KJ Osborne, I think he's a solid number 3. I mean, he's like a TG Hawkinson, who's still a top 5 for me, in terms of tight ends. But for me, if you're going to ask me, like, yes, Madison is Alexander Madison, not one of the greatest options in terms of the running back position, because the fact he got rid of Dalvin Cook was kind of questionable, to say the least. And yes, I mean, not really. I mean, you looked at the game he had, his first game with the Jets was not too bad. And that should tell you that maybe you should have kept him at least for one more year, then you let him walk. I'm sorry, I don't think Alexander Madison is that great of a running back. Unless you're a team that's so freaking terrible. Like, if he gets to go 100, let's say over 100 plus yards on a crappy team, well, that's really not here and there. But like I said, Hurts, and Brian Johnson needs to get his head out of his ass. I'm sorry, but the way he had his play calling it's really throwing everybody off rhythm. That's Hurts included, with the wide receivers. And for some reason, Brian Johnson doesn't want to run the football for whatever reason. And yes, we're in this age of the NFL where it's mostly pass heavy, but you don't really need to be pass heavy. Yeah, a lot of times can work with some games depending on who you're playing and the style of and the type of competition. But the problem that I have with how everything has gone on is like, yeah, we ran the ball better than anybody. We pretty much ran all over the Vikings. Yeah, we could have put up at least 45 to 50 points easy on the Vikings and put this game on ice. But it's continued. There's opportunities. We keep missing opportunities when we really need it. Obviously, with, like I said, going back to what I said earlier, Rashad Petty with that holding cost 7 points right there. You had AJ Brown get held in the secondary by Minnesota. Could have been 7 right then and there. I think he also had another 7-point opportunity. He could have pretty much at the goal line. And obviously, the offensive line needs to wake the hell up, mostly from Landon Dickerson, because it's really showing that Landon Dickerson is starting to become a liability. I really hate to say that, and I like Dickerson. I think he's a decent player. But the problem that I did, for some reason, I don't know where his blocking has been especially the start of this year. In terms when you ask, like, I think right now his spot's right now kind of just not the greatest and he's a liability, part of this offensive line, whether you agree to or disagree with me or not. It's the fact that these first 2 weeks, Landon Dickerson is one of those guys that are letting most of these defensive linemen get into Jalen Hurts and sacking him. And quite honestly, it's getting really ridiculous to this point. I really do think, Dickerson's a liability. But all in all, like I said, I'm not really going to go on too much. Obviously with Philadelphia playing against Tampa Bay, you got to really take advantage of a team like Tampa Bay, who it's not going to be the greatest. So I don't expect, Tampa Bay to come out swinging hard against us. But then again, knowing if we continue to miss opportunities on the offensive side of things, but I think so. Michael Clay still needs to get fired for the terms of the special teams, but that's besides the point. But yeah, I mean, look, the Eagles got to take care of they got to take care of business down in Tampa Bay, and I don't know who exactly what the Minnesota Vikings are playing, but if they're going to play a bit of a tough opponent, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a rough one, or whatever. Like I said, depending on who the Vikings play the following week, but all in all, like I said, the Eagles got to take care of business down in Tampa Bay because I think the defense is starting to come around. Now, yes, we were kind of a bit short-handed because obviously with Reem Brinkenship dealing with the rib injury, Bradbury with the concussion, and yes, we missed some offensive pieces as well, which it happens in football. Injuries are going to be unexpected. But once Bradbury comes back, I do think this defense is starting to come around to be what we expected it can be. Obviously, with the additions of Jalen Carter from the draft, I mean, whenever Eli Ricks gets an opportunity, because let's be real, I don't know where this dude's been at, and you really can't fault the kid. I don't know why the coaching staff does not really want to give this dude a chance to play. Because let's be real, the fact he had two guys in Josh Joby and Mario Goodrich over a guy like Riggs, who, let's be real, outshined them in preseason in order to make the team. I'm sorry, that should tell you all you need to know. Yes, I know preseason is preseason. We're moved on from that. But Eli Ricks, for me, is a capable cornerback to be on the opposite of Darius Slay. And unfortunately, I don't know why the coaching staff can't apparently thinks otherwise. But hey, for me, I can't really say much because I'm not a coach. I never coach football. But all in all, really, my last look, it's a okay win, but we got to stop having I really do not want to have this conversation for another straight week if you're going to play, if somehow Tampa Bay plays like how the Vikings did against us. With that being said, guys, I'm going to end it here. Like I said, I appreciate everyone who actually kind of hung out a little bit. Like I said, I didn't want to go too much detail with it. It is actually 12:16 a.m. here on the East Coast. Shout out to my West Coast people who still have at 9. It's still 9:16 on the Pacific time. So I appreciate anyone coming in. If you guys need to make sure you hit that like button, also hit that subscribe button. Eagles win 34-28 over the Minnesota Vikings. Really cannot have that again. And go Birds.